Hello everyone, this is Zach Weiss, and I am at Windup Watch Fair San Francisco 2022. And I'm joined by none other than Mike France, co-founder and CEO of Christopher Ward. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for putting this on after a long break.
Yeah.
And my goodness, haven't people responded?
Yeah, it's been a great show so far.
It's fantastic.
And
Absolutely
yeah,
fantastic.
it's great to see you guys again. It's been a few years, so.
It has, yeah. We had a few Teams calls in the time, but I'd begun to think you may only be virtual, but you are real, Zach. Yeah, thanks. Good to know. It's good to know. You do exist. You do exist.
So on top of being back in the U.S. and being at our fair, you have had a pretty exciting day. You've launched a whole new collection.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the C65 Aquitaine?
The C65 Aquitaine, that beautiful region of southwest France.
Okay.
Famous for all sorts of things, including fine wines, but also Jacques-Yves Cousteau, who was born there. And indeed, it was his sort of inspiration that led to the naming of the watch. And the watch is based on a sort of there's no doubt a nod towards the 50 fathoms, which, depending on who's got the biggest boxing gloves on the particular day, either Rolex or Blancpain claim that was the first modern dive watch.
Yeah.
But certainly they were pretty simultaneous in their launch, and we've always loved the shape and the curvature of the 50 fathoms.
Yeah.
And we were looking to do a Trident Mark II, but it kind of wasn't doing it for us. Although it was improved in every aspect, as we would expect. Why would you bring out a Mark II if it's not going to be improved in every aspect? But the reality was it wasn't quite doing it for us. So the guys had not the best of meetings when we were looking to sign off the Mark II, because I just felt it wasn't there. To their absolute credit, they went back to literally to the drawing board. And people like Adrian and Will, these guys take this sort of stuff very seriously. Your Bader Jr., who is with us here this week, the three of them went back to the history of dive watches and came back with sketches and ideas that pertain closer to the 50 fathoms than the Submariner. And it was the proportions that they created, which is very different to the 50 fathoms. And the curvature of the real hero of the piece, which is the sapphire bezel. Now, you will know sapphire bezels are not commonplace. Blancpain have sort of mastered it with the 50 fathoms, although I think originally it was a Bakelite bezel. We've got the scars on our back through sapphire dial manufacture. I mean, believe me, a few scars. But eventually, and forgive the pun, we cracked it. And the next obvious step to us seemed to be to move towards a sapphire bezel. And so the Aquitaine is this watch rooted in early 50s dive watches, but really of a very contemporary nature, because, as you'd imagine, every aspect of it is really well drilled in terms of its quality.
So in terms of then the lineup, you have the C60, the C63s, and the C65. So how does that all balance out?
Well, we'll see ultimately how it balances, depending on how successful the Aquitaine is. But we're in the process of completing what I call a platforms.
Okay.
I mean, one day we may have more than King's Cross, who knows? But the Trident has always been our biggest platform. It's our first major platform. And by platform, I simply mean design, aesthetics, and models that can be built upon, that can go into other areas whilst retaining the aesthetic, whether that be new sizes, whether it be new complications, whether it be colours, whatever it might be. The Sealander was launched this time last year and has become as big as the Trident.
Okay.
And it's we thought it was going to be good, but it staggered us.
Yeah.
The Aquitaine is intended to be something between the Trident and the Sealander, in terms of its scale. The customers will determine that over time. This time next year, we'll be launching, touch wood, our fourth platform.
Okay.
Which will be, and the aim, and this is only on paper because you never know until we can teach customers to buy to estimate, which is a difficult task. We will never know. But as we move into 23, 24, We expect each of those platforms to be roughly 20% of our business, with specialty being the extra 20%. If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I lost track of the numbers, but it's, yeah.
Take
And then-
notes, please.
Yeah,
Zach,
yeah.
Take notes. Yeah.
And then aesthetically, though, the C65, it always was the sort of rooted in vintage and
Yeah.
staying rooted
Yeah.
in vintage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
very
it's
good.
I think it's got a very different aesthetic, and it's very
Yeah.
interesting today because this is the first time anybody's seen it outside of our company in the metal.
Yeah.
And what we've had is an overwhelmingly positive response, and most people have said, "Oh, it's much better than we thought it was from the imagery." And I think it's one of those watches that when you actually see the contours of the watch
Yeah.
and understand the softness and the sophistication of it,
Yeah.
you really get it. And of course, sapphire carries colour so brilliantly well. I mean, the world is limited in ceramic to a very small palette of colours, unless you're a major brand like Rolex and you can afford to invest in your own ceramic mixers.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. Yeah? So the rest of us, literally, virtually the rest of the industry, is restricted to about 6 colours.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, including they've recently dropped red. So with a sapphire bezel, we're not restricted by colour at all.
Yeah.
So I think the colours we've introduced now, I think are quite lustrous and suit the watch itself and the bezel itself. But I think you can expect to see more colours coming through.
Yeah.
And if it turns into a platform, fingers crossed, you'll also see other sizes coming through.
Yeah.
And the Sealander's success, what I can tell you is that in August the first 36mm Sealander will be launched.
Oh, very exciting.
It's always an indication of a successful platform, whichever brand it might be, if it's going into other sizes. Yeah?
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. No, it's fantastic. I was just looking at them briefly. There was a crowd, so I got our hands up for a second. But the color on the GMT, it was very unique. It wasn't what you expect. The typical colors that people go for the vintage GMT had a more sort of muted and interesting sort of look to it. It's very
there's a lot of
appealing.
debate about that.
Yeah.
I mean, Adrian and I were really pro using egg. We called it egg for many months. It's called white sand in the marketing literature, but internally it's egg. Yeah, I much prefer egg, but they said no, you can't use egg.
Yeah.
We were really. It was important to us to do something different.
Yeah.
Possibly because I'm the CEO, I won.
It helps. Yeah.
But actually, the GMT, where you've got that pop of blue on the GMT hand as well, combined with the white sand and the bezel, has been phenomenal. The reaction has been so egg. Stroke white sand looks like it's really important to us, and I think the mixture of the blue and the white and the green and the white works particularly well. So it was a bit of a risk, but it's early days, but it seems like it may have paid off.
Excellent. So one watch I want to ask you about that's not new, but still newish. So you had the C63 Sealander Elite, which is a beautiful watch with a sunken crown.
Yeah.
And then you did the Colchester.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that? Was your first forged carbon watch?
Yeah.
Correct. Can you just tell us a little bit about that project? It was so cool.
Well, it's as you know, we're one of only 5 brands that are licensed by the Ministry of Defence to create watches for the Her Majesty's Armed Forces, and it's a real honour for us, and we're very proud to be associated. And we took the view that we would work with the forces themselves to work out what really worked for them. The first Series 1, which is based on the 3 major training colleges, the Sandhurst, the Cranwell and Dartmouth, representing each of the 3 major officer training places of the forces, have then been supplemented by more contemporary watches. They're quite classic. The Sandhurst is a classic field watch, for instance. We've then introduced, firstly, a watch devoted to the Royal Marines, and then last October we brought out, having worked with the Paratroop Regiment, the Colchester. Colchester is their base in England. Now, talking to them, we're taking through the collection. Of course, when you're hanging from a parachute, a bit like when you're riding a bike, a crown digs into the back of your wrist. So they saw the Elite, the C63 Elite, they went, wow.
Yeah.
And can we have it as light as possible? Okay. Carbon, yeah. So it weighs in at 43 grams. It's, the retractable crown is for me, it's beautiful. I mean, it takes a little adjusting. Where's the crown? But when you wear it, it's the most comfortable of our watches. You can hardly feel it on your wrist, and you've got no sort of digging in of the crown. So it was a very close relate. We've collaborated with you guys, and we take collaboration seriously.
Yeah, very much.
I think the watches we did with you seriously benefited from your input, just as the watches we're doing with Her Majesty's Forces are benefiting from their input.
Yeah.
So it's been a good line for us.
Yeah,
And,
it's fantastic. What I loved about it was just it didn't feel like forged carbon used for simply an aesthetic purpose. It really related to the concept, and it weighs nothing. And then you have the retractable crown. Like, it all just fits together.
But yeah, I mean, and it's not accidental, is it? It is about collaborating. And if you want to collaborate, then best you listen, best you talk, and usually something better evolves from it. Yeah. That's our experience.
Excellent. Yeah.
And even with you guys.
Hopefully, yeah. So, anything coming out down the line? Anything you're excited about?
Yeah.
Anything you can tease?
Yeah, teasers all around. Well, I've mentioned the 36mm Sealanders, and some interesting stuff going on there in colour. I mean, it hasn't passed us by that colour is a trend at the moment, and so we'll have two standard colours that will be series colours forever, as long as it's around, and then we'll have 4 limited edition colours which will sell out, we hope, quite quickly. And then on a seasonal basis, the plan will be to keep introducing colours, and we're working with one of the largest colorist companies, pigmentation companies, on colour. So it's kind of interesting. But the big launch in end of August, beginning of September, so the next loop cover is it's an interesting one, because it's not the for some people it'd be the most exciting launch of the year. Not for me. That's coming later, and I can only just tease the second one. But we were intending to do Trident 4 for May 23. However, that's been pushed back to 24. Two reasons. One is T3 is still pounding away. Second reason is we've got something even more exciting for May 23, this 4th platform that I'm talking about. So that's superseded T4. However, we've done a lot of work with our forum, asking them what would they like to see improved in T4. A lot of feedback, and there were some really interesting comments, some of which chimed with what we felt, some not. And rather than have them wait until May 24 to see some of their inputs delivered into a watch, we're bringing out a Trident 3.1.
Oh, cool.
Which will perhaps be towards T4. Perhaps not, but it's going to be a really interesting sort of, and it's at a lower selling price, which people will really appreciate, especially in these times, I think, where rampant inflation, etc., we're all being affected. So that comes out in August, September. And then November. And we were just talking, because you might have to retime Windup. Because I think, is it 21st, 22nd, 23rd of October?
It's towards the end of October,
because it's
deposits are paid.
No, we're going to debate whether we launch in the metal there, so we bring the launch forward a bit. On the evidence of this, which has been fantastic so far, I think that the hands will go up for voting yes, but that's not confirmation. But it's going to knock everybody's socks off. It is. You will not have seen anything like it before, I guarantee it. Certainly not from us, and certainly not in the recent past, at anything like our sort of price pointing. In many ways, this is real watchmaking. I was talking to one of our customers who in San Francisco this morning, and he was saying, one of the things, and I was agreeing with him. One of the things about you guys is you seem to have a depth of knowledge about watchmaking. And I'd like to think that's true, but it's not always necessary. You can create a really good-looking watch brand these days as long as you've got a good eye for design. You can then turnkey it with somebody like Rowenta in Switzerland. Many people do it very successfully. What it doesn't necessarily guarantee is that you've got any knowledge of the craft, and to create watches that really drive into the craft of watchmaking, you need knowledge. You've got to have put your 10,000 hours in,
Right.
And we're very fortunate. The reason that we merged with Synergy back in 2014 is I wanted us to have that depth of knowledge, that depth of expertise. This watch that I'm wearing, which is the C60 Concept, it's in that direction. In collaboration with some of the finest watch manufacturers in Switzerland. We're using some of the same guys with the watch that's coming out at the end of October, but it's nothing like the Concept. It's a completely different concept in that sense, and it's just really exciting. It's really exciting. And audio is the only clue I'll give you as to what it might be.
Okay, very interesting.
So that's what we're working on, and then following that, there's a brilliant launch in Feb, and then there's the big platform in May. Hopefully, we navigate our way through, because at the moment, everybody here and everybody in the industry is cognizant of a very fragile supply chain. So if we all navigate our way through the challenges, that's the plan. We'll see.
It sounds extremely exciting, as per usual.
Well, we like to keep ourselves interested as much as anything. I mean, it's
I mean, you're a brand that has continued to push, I think, what a younger modern brand can do. I think
even with an old guy like me at the helm,
But from the SH21 to now, you're talking about the sapphire crystals. I think people who, like you're saying, kind of know a little bit more about like what it takes to manufacture these things will continuing to look at your product and think like you're really doing something different. And it's not just that it's at this price point. You're doing really hard stuff, period. And you're getting really good at it. So, I mean, your whole sapphire line.
We're getting better and better at it.
So that this keeps going is, it's tremendously exciting.
I mean, the more you practice, the better you get normally. So you're right. The challenge is there's always got to be a challenge. Let's not just get complacent. Let's not think we've cracked it. Let's keep pushing forward. And we'll make mistakes, but hopefully we'll get more right than we get wrong. And I think that's all you can hope for. And literally, if we're not interested and I'm not interested, how the hell do we expect our customers to be interested? So it's kind of newness, new things is part of our DNA. It is for the industry, let's face it, and that's what keeps us all fascinated by this magnificent industry we're all part of.
Excellent. Well, Mike, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
For joining us at Windup Watch Fair San Francisco. That's where we are again.
Thank you for putting it on, Zach. It's I say, if the next 2 days are anything like the first day, masterpiece, masterstroke. Well done.
Excellent, and thank you for watching.
Great.